parents of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saints Joachim and Anne. The New Testament, the Bible, the Gospels, have no information at all about Mary's parents, but there were 2nd century documents, pious writings, that gave names to her parents and created kind of a tradition that took root in the early centuries of the church. And so we do have devotions to Joachim and St. Anne going back to the 2nd century. And in this 2nd century document called the Proto-Gospel of James, it describes Mary's father, Joachim, as a wealthy member of the 12 tribes of Israel. And according to the story, Joachim was grieved along with his wife Anne because they were childless. It's a common story, of course, that we hear in the scriptures. And the writing says, Joachim called to mind Abraham, the early Christian writing says, that in the last day, God did give him a son, Isaac. So Joachim and Anne, according to the story, began to devote themselves to prayer and penance and fasting. They kind of secluded themselves, really intending to really call upon the Lord to bless them with the child, because they regarded their inability to conceive as a kind of shameful thing, a misfortune. And as it turned out, the couple ended up being blessed in the most abundant way. An angel revealed to Anne that all generations would honor her future child. According to the writing, the Lord has heard your prayer, and you shall conceive, and shall bring forth, and your seed shall be spoken of in all the world. After Mary's birth, according to this writing, Anne made a sanctuary in the infant girl's room, and allowed nothing common or unclean to enter into it because of the special holiness of her child Mary. The same writing records that when Mary was 1 year old, her father made a great feast and invited the priests and the scribes and the elders and all the people of Israel. According to the writing, Joachim brought the girl to the priests, and they blessed her, saying, O God of our fathers, bless this child, and give her an everlasting name to be honored in all generations. And then he brought her to the chief priests, and they blessed her, saying, O God most high, look upon this child, bless her with the utmost blessing, which shall be forever. The writing then goes on to describe how Mary's parents, along with the temple priest, decided that she should be dedicated to God as a virgin for all of her life. And then at some point, arranged a marriage and a relationship with Joseph, who would be her husband. St. Joachim and Anne, as I mentioned, have been part of the church's liturgical calendar for a lot of years, and they are considered to be the patron saints of childless couples. So that's one way that we could look at today's feast about, what early Christians kind of actively believed and devoted themselves to with regards to Mary's parents. But I think on a more personal note, it's interesting to reflect on the relationship of Joachim and Anne with Christ. Because really the story and all the stories of the saints are about Jesus. Did Jesus have some kind of relationship with his grandparents, his biological grandparents on his mother's side, and his relationship even with Joseph's parents? Did he know them? Were they still alive when he was a child? What did he learn from them? Did he ever ask his mother Mary about her parents, his grandparents? And what qualities and characteristics did Jesus inherit from his biological grandparents? I think too often we may overlook the contribution of people who've gone before us, especially our own ancestors, the members of our family. What about them has been passed on to us? And if we recognize the goodness of our grandparents and those who've gone before them, should we also not show gratitude to God for them? So today would be a good day maybe to reflect on our ancestry, the people who have preceded us, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. What do we know about them? And even if we know very little, can we still give thanks to God for the lives of those folks who have made our lives possible, especially if we know that they were people of faith? It's good, as the first reading tells us, to praise them. And here's that first reading again, which I think sums up so nicely the way we look at our own past. It says, "Now will I praise those godly people, our ancestors, each in his own time. These were godly men and women whose virtues have not been forgotten. Their bodies may peacefully be laid away, but their names live on and on. At our gatherings, their wisdom is retold, and the assembly proclaims